Greetings and welcome to Unveiling a Reality. How's everybody doing out there this evening? Hope you are all living well. Tonight, we will be deprogramming HAARP, the HAARP conspiracy grift forever. And this one attaches neatly to the previous show we just did on deprogramming the chemtrail conspiracy grift forever. And part of the deprogramming forever series, I guess. So we're doing now. I'm going to go into the addition here. We're going to learn about the history of it, where the grift came from originally. I'm going to show you the original documentary. It's really short, just highlights of it, where these original kind of thoughts about the facility came from. I'm gonna talk about what the facility actually is, where it's located, the history of its ownership, who is in charge of it now. Then we're going to actually go on a tour of this place. We're going to see how it works. We're going to understand in depth exactly what it's supposed to be doing, what its capabilities are, and what it's actually used for. And then we are going to get a look at some people just that have toured the facility and so on. But we're gonna get deep into it tonight. Actually, this is actually a very simple grift to debunk, and hopefully it's even easier. It'll be even easier after this to deprogram people from it, because a lot of times people latch on to this grift with very little knowledge of it, and they just kind of take things at face value. So that's why I designed these deprogramming streams the way I do, is so that we can step through it. Right, here's where you get the original grifty information from. Here's how it actually works. Here's what it actually looks like. Here's the people who are actually working with it. And then hopefully by the end, I've kind of walked people through the idea like, hey, you know what? I didn't do enough research on this when I first kind of just accepted the fact that this was somehow part of some kind of weather control, mind control kind of apparatus, right? You're going to find that, and this is the big takeaway here from this series, is that people who tend to grasp onto this line of thought, the chemtrail, HAARP, CERN kind of line of thinking, they tend to really never get into the research aspect of it. And that's much like what people in the first veil, how they operate. Like they see something the mainstream media gives them, they accept it, they repeat it, and they don't ever question it, or they don't ever stand up to any kind of scrutiny of that belief system. And so there's a parallel here that's running between people who think that they're onto something in this conspiracy grift, and people who think they're onto something, and as far as the way the world works, that are just sitting in the first veil, accepting the establishment narrative. So we're going to really look at that comparison a lot as we go through the material tonight. And I'm hoping that people that have latched on to this HAARP conspiracy grift will take a second look with an open mind and consider the fact that it's better to know the truth than be right. Right. And that if a grifter, a conspiracy grifter, has sucked you into their line of thinking, and you really haven't done the work, right, to decipher it, to vet it, to make sure it's true, that you're kind of still in the first veil, aren't you, a little bit? And we want to get away from that. We want to do better than we were born into. We want to do better than those poor people that are stuck, believing the Democrats are the good guys, and then the establishment is there to lovingly protect us, and everything they do has our best interest in mind, right? So we've escaped that. If you're into the HAARP chemtrail stuff, then you've at least escaped the establishment narrative, so you understand the dangers of just buying into things. You understand that there are people out there trying to deceive you. What I try to get people to understand is that they're still out there trying to deceive you, even though you're not listening to the establishment media anymore, right? That there was a second awakening. I'm trying to pound that idea in there. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. But let me go ahead and get to the chat here and welcome everybody. Welcome to the VIPs in the front row. Wolfram, thank you for dropping these links, my man. We had a question for you. What was it? I maybe Shelly can remind me what it was. I wanted to ask you about something. But anyways, he wipes his paws, lopes in and howls. Hey, yeah, right. Well, not in this case, Grimspar. Not in this case, buddy. You're gonna want to stick around because it's highly scientific, right up your alley. Now I separate this now, right? Conspiracy is a modern term for just ahead of your time. Really, I don't think chemtrail people are ahead of their time, but that's why I add grift onto the end of it, right? Conspiracy grift. See, we're conspiracy realists in a sense that we talk about the open conspiracies that are true, that are clear, present dangers, and are heading right towards us at rapid speeds. Like there's always conspiracies going around. Uh, it's a very simple term when you leave it by itself, but when you have somebody who's trying to push a bunch of bullshit, and you know this, Grim, you're probably one of the most scientific dudes I know right now. That the whole idea of the chemtrails is ridiculous. But if you didn't see that episode, it was last week's Unveiling Reality episode. It's a big package, a 5-hour package of just every line, every talking point a conspiracy grift will make about chemtrails, and then how they, all the way through. So I've really put together a one-stop shop package to not only debunk the entire thing, but also to deprogram people that have fallen for it. And that's really the goal here. And that's why it says deprogramming instead of debunking out in front of it. Is I really want to reach the people, because they're effective people in a sense. Like they can be effective people. They're not effective right now because they're in this rabbit hole, but they can be effective because they have the energy and the will to get out there and do something. So I don't discard that. Like that's a part of it. I'm like, man, we're on the same page here, but let's just get you pointed in the right direction, because I understand how these grifts work, and I understand that it's some of the earliest grifts people will latch onto when they've had to readjust their belief system about the mainstream media and this reality in general, like the one we were born into here in this modern age in this country. And they are important. A lot of people will just say they're crazy or they're dumb, and maybe some of these people in there are, and maybe some of these people in there are maliciously pushing this grift out, right? They're doing it for their own personal interest. However, I think a lot of them are just caught up in it, and they have to realize that you now have the responsibility to do deeper research, to take it on yourself, that you are responsible for what you say and what you believe. And then there are plenty of people out there that know that would love to just rope you into a dead end situation where you're not only discredited, but you're not being effective. And so that takes you out of the game there. And I want to bring you back in the game. So that's what it's all about. I hope you'll rewatch it there, Grimsy. Hope you'll rewatch it. Lady Out of Sky, how you doing? And this is, hey, Grim, by the way, this is a really easy one to roll through. We're probably going to get out of here in like 2 hours tonight, I think. It's not that difficult to debunk this one at all. And then next week we're going to do CERN. That's the collider, right? That's that a lot of people think people are opening up a wormhole to talk to Satan through. People think that they are using it to do nefarious things. So we're going to do the same kind of deprogramming and debunking that we're doing tonight with that next week. And that will also there's a byproduct of the CERN grift that is called the Mandela effect. I will run over that at the end. That'll be kind of fun to run through. But yeah, that comes off the CERN. So have you ever heard of the Mandela effect? The result of that, I mean, the Mandela effect is, as they will tell you, it comes from CERN, right? From using CERN. They believe that that's how the Mandela effect happened. So that one's, it gets, you notice that the further down the rabbit hole you go with these things, the more weirder they get. Right? Like with the UFO rabbit hole, like you start out just kind of wondering if UFOs and aliens had visited. You go into saying, well, are they here now? Are they still kind of buzzing around? And by the time you get to the end of it, you're believing in the Galactic Federation of Light and transdimensional reptoids, right? That's kind of funny. So yeah, the deeper you go, the weirder it gets, and the more you'll buy into. And that's a lot like the establishment narrative too. The more they'll buy into, right? People that are just watching CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and all the establishment media and just buying into what they're hearing. I mean, weapons of mass destruction was a conspiracy grift from the establishment. So the establishment does conspiracy grifts all the time, right? We just need to know how to point them out and call them out. And we don't often compare the two, but they really have the same effect, right? They really have the same effect in the end. You have a bunch of people under a state of mind control that makes them live in a certain state of mind, right? And with that, you have a certain amount of controllability over them, or you can actually quash the dissent by using these as well. And as we've seen, right, you could also bury very important items by just comparing them to these conspiracy groups and see, well, these people all believe this stuff. So when they mention this stuff, which is real, we can't take them seriously. And that's the most damaging and unfortunate part of it. Oh, by the way, let me thank all the YouTube members. Thank you guys so much for being YouTube members. You guys get that super chat, one free super chat a month, and I hope you use it. But you guys help the channel out, so thank you guys so much for that. All right, let's get back to welcoming in everybody. Let's see, where was I at? Grim got a big old intro. Lady Autumn Sky, how you doing? All right, so happy that you're here, and thank you for everybody that joined Protest TV late and early in the morning. That was a pop-up stream, but it was a lot of fun, and I'll be doing more of those as time goes on. Cool Gamer, what's up, my man? All right, happy to see you here. Hope you will stick around and hear the whole show tonight. We got yeah, we got everybody in here. It's funny how people have their ideas about how things go. We all do. One of us, you know, some of us are right and some of us aren't, but you know, yeah, I don't okay, good. I'm glad we worked that out from. I think we already asked you that one. But it was something else, but I'll think of it later. If not, maybe Shelly will think of it and just ask you in the chat. See, Grim says the rules of the game. Don't think about the game. If you think about the game, you will lose the game. If you lose the game, you will say you have lost the game. You have to say you lost the game. No one wins the game. Everyone is only losing. Well, that's great. Great. Happy losing day, Grim. To win the game, you don't play the game. Well, that's how you get out of the rigged game, right? But you got to call out the rigged game. And by the way, you know, it's like if you just wash your hands of it, in my opinion, I don't know if that's what you meant or not, but in my opinion, you're losing that too, you know, and you just because you lose it generationally. See, I think generationally, like our enemies do. Hey, Ellie Font, there you are. She's kind of here, kind of there, kind of everywhere. So happy you're here. So you lost the game. Well, come on now. You join up with me, we'll win the game. All right, we'll win the game. I think he's talking about World of Warcraft. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. What game? What game is he talking about? The game of life? There's a lot of interesting talks about that we'll be having in the future. This thing just kind of popped up because I saw so much of it. You know, so many of these grifts rolling around now, and I'm like, how are these still even happening in this day and age? Haven't you know these things were debunked a decade and a half ago, and yet a whole new generation of people have fallen down these rabbit holes again. So obviously we have to do more work on that. That's what I'm making these programs for, so that they're evergreen, they stand the test of time. And as you run into people who are grifting these conspiracies, you can just drop this link to my show or drop the link to the playlist that is associated with this show that has all the supporting material in it. And you could drop either one, and you've done your part to try to maybe help that person along the way. You don't even have to have a big conversation with them. Just drop the link. That's how we used to do it back in the day. It was pretty effective for those who would listen, right? And it always makes you wonder about the people who don't. These people who think that they're living in truth, but won't have a real debate, or won't have do revetting with an open mind on their own beliefs. You know, I think they're kind of like proving to themselves, if they don't realize that they're proving it to everybody else, that they don't really have an open mind, that they're no different than when they were just listening and obeying the establishment media. And that's, I'm sure that would cause enough of a concern to bring clarity about on these situations. Don't be scared. If you really believe in what you believe in, be bold, be brave, and confront those beliefs. Make sure that they're solid. Make sure they stand up to debate. Make sure that they're real. And it's not about, you know, and see, the other problem is a lot of people don't understand how to debate or how to actually debate the truth. They think they have to win an argument. And that's why you know, we say here, it's better to know the truth than be right. And if you make a mistake, that's cool. Humble yourself. It's okay. Well, most of us have made mistakes. Most of us have fallen for grifts in our life. It's not a shameful thing unless you continue to do it and that you live in fear of it, of facing that fact. But if you're brave enough, like you're brave enough to walk away from the establishment narrative, then you should be brave enough to confront, you know, maybe there's more to learn out there. Maybe there's more to learn out there. Maybe it isn't as clear as I think, just because I walked away from one sources of information, that everything else is going to be accurate, that I can trust the people that are actually putting it out. So I'm going to show you how this all works again. And that's what this series is about, from Chemtrails to CERN and tonight HAARP. I'm going to show you how these are very easily, people adopt these very quickly, yet they don't even understand how these things work, and they don't bother to take the time to do it. So are they grifters? Have they been grifted? Are they useful idiots of the grifters? Or are they actually, you know, just working their way through it. We don't know. We don't know. But I want to be the roadmap. I want to help people through these things as quickly as possible. And you learn a lot too when you figure, oh, I fell for that, but now I understand how it works. You'll become a better researcher. You'll become you'll become more focused on getting to the truth of the matters, right? And questioning to the void. And you'll also be more patient and making up your mind about things, right? You'll take your time. You'll realize that you have time to sort things out before you buy into them. But I'm going to show you some examples tonight as well of people that have full on bought into these grifts, but don't really understand. And you can tell by their content, they don't really understand what they're talking about. Yet they're willing to put that out to all these people. That's a responsibility. Like I take my responsibility of discerning information and what I do here seriously. I don't want to mislead people. The idea is to get us on the same page so that we can be effective. And that's part of the vision that's out there, is that these grifts are the establishment narratives that are twisted and spun for their agenda's purposes, right? They're all doing the same thing, right? And that's part of the understanding of this journey. And when you get past that and you understand that the first and second veils are two sides of the same coin, whether you're into conspiracy grifts or you're into the establishment grifts, right? They're all the same, right? They end up producing the same results. People that are controllable and ineffective in the long run, right? And that's the sad part. But I know a lot of people that buy into this want to be effective, and so that's why I'm doing this. This isn't an attack on anybody who's bought into it. I considered this information for a while as well, but then when you dig into it and you start asking questions, you realize that this doesn't hold water. So that's what we're going to get into tonight. So I hope you guys will stick around for the whole ride, because this ride is going to be a good one. If you haven't ever seen this material before, you're going to be enlightened in a new way. And then when you see people out there harping about it, God, with the dad jokes, harping about it, you will be able to counter them with some information. And there you go. All right. Thank you guys so much, everybody on Rumble and X, on the Rewatch crew, and here on YouTube. Thank you guys. Let's get into this. All right. So we're going to start off tonight, and I'll address the chat one more time. Let me get this straight. All right. So what do I got here? Let's see. Talking. Question Wolfram memory works maybe in 2 weeks, probably. I gotta say 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay. Also asking, what do you believe and why is a huge question unless you give references to which subject. Yeah, I mean, and what's the harm in that? If you're on the other side of the first veil, you want to live in truth, right? You believe you're searching for truth. You want to live in truth. You believe that being outside of the establishment narrative has given you truth, and it has given you some truth, but it doesn't mean that everything outside of the establishment narrative is true, right? You still have to discern. There's still people there waiting to take advantage of you and abuse you with information, and you need to stand up against that. And let me just tell you, I'm on your side with that. I'm on your side. A lot of people will react negatively to even seeing the headline, the subject matter of this this stream tonight, and without even watching it, they'll drop a comment, or they'll leave, they'll unfollow, they'll unsubscribe, whatever. They'll do something, right? They'll take some radical action. And hopefully that bugs them a little bit, knowing that they're willing to close their mind off that much, right? Without really investigating it, without really getting into it. And they'll just make assumptions, because what are they doing, guys? What are they doing? We've learned this. We talk about it all the time. What are they doing? It's denial, right? It's the denial reflex. So they're fight or flight, they fly. They don't believe in themselves enough and deep, without them even realizing, subconsciously they don't believe in the information they have enough to stand beside it. But they'll run away from any kind of anything that contradicts that belief system, which is the uncomfortable feeling called cognitive dissonance. Subconsciously they know they haven't done the research. Subconsciously they know they don't have the information, but they want to believe it. They need to believe it because it holds all this other stuff together, right? I'm going to show you what that is tonight. I'm going to show you how HAARP holds together this chemtrail thing in a lot of ways. So when you've questioned to the void on the chemtrail issue, right, and you've got them on all these different points that they can't come back and give good information about how it works. They can't tell you what plane it is. They can't tell you what kind of fuel it is. They can't tell you anything. And then when you debunk their points, oh well, they've high levels of aluminum and barium and all that stuff, and yeah, contaminated samples from the ground, right? They can't hold up to that. They got to find something bigger to make it all work. And HAARP usually ends up filling that void. And I'm going to show you how with this first very quick highlighted documentary. Hopefully it's so old, hopefully it's not a problem. It's from 1995. I don't think we're going to run any problems with this. So it's from 1995. And I want to show you the origins of the HAARP grift. All right. And this is where it comes from right here. 1995 documentary. And just for some background information, the HAARP was actually, HAARP stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. And it began in 1990, right? I guess it began as in being approved as a facility. Construction began in 1993. This documentary comes out in 1995. So 2 years in, people are already starting to have suspicions about it. But this one gets out. This documentary gets out with a bunch of people that don't understand what they're talking about, really, as far as the facility goes, but they're grasping onto things. And so you can see where the origins of this conspiracy grift have, where the roots come from, is this and other documentaries like it. So let's get into this and we'll start doing the analysis right now. Boop.
In 1993, the FAA...
You guys remember UPN? UPN from way back in the day?
started warning pilots to stay away from a certain section of airspace over Alaska. The U.S. government was experimenting with a new breed of high-altitude electronic technology that was significantly altering the Alaskan airspace. The experiments continue to this day, and critics are warning that this project could have global effects that will destroy our planet.
Okay, critics are saying this. Okay. You don't want to fly through. This thing isn't always on. That's one of the big issues they don't really clarify. They turn it on, they turn it off, right? And so we'll get into how it works later on. Like we're going to go inside of it. We're going to see the mechanics of it. We're going to see the people who run it. We're going to know who's running it today and how much they actually use it, right? And what they use it for. The doomsday machine. So there you go. You've already labeled it the doomsday machine by these people right here. I mean, you're already planning expectations in people's minds when you do this. So this is very grifty. Lighting.
In Alaska, the rugged, pristine wilderness is timeless, most of it remaining just as it has for thousands of years.
Look at that.
In the midst of all this natural beauty, just outside the small town of Gakona, stands an enormous and seemingly harmless antenna farm.
An antenna farm, right? Yeah, definitely. I mean, so when people use that, they come out with fear first, right? It's like it's almost a signal that that something's up, right? Not always. Sometimes there's things to be worried about for sure, right? But things like this, they tend to come out there and they label it the doomsday machine up front. And then you look at this is the doomsday machine sitting out there in the wide open area, right? We'll get into this more in a second.
It is a $100 million Air Force project known as HAARP, and critics of the soon-to-be completed facility charge it just may turn out to be the ultimate doomsday machine.
Yes.
It's got all the marks of Dr.
Look at this kid. He's got skulls. He's got an owl, a stuffed owl sitting next to him. I think it's stuffed. If not, he's got a cool pet owl. But man, he got the creepy background, creepy music. It's really, the psychology is already on its way. It makes you wonder who, if this was made by people that were intentionally wanting to turn this into some kind of conspiracy grift, or if they were just paranoid. I don't know. But I mean, maybe a little COINTELPRO going on here.
Strangelove on it.
HAARP is an acronym for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. According to program manager John Hesher, HAARP is a research facility designed to study the ionosphere.
I mean, dude, come on. When you think about doomsday machines, is this what you're thinking? I mean, look at this wide open door here. Here's a gentleman just kind of climbing up some pylons to get into the trailer here. This is the typical doomsday machine. They should use this more in like movies.
All the military have communications, surveillance, navigation systems whose paths either traverse the ionosphere or reflect from it.
Okay, so you see that guy was the facility manager right there in 95. I want you to keep the dates in mind because it's important, because ownership and who is taking care of it now changes over the years, right? So in 1995, this is the originators, right? So we got you got some Air Force and other government programs doing setting this up to understand some of the research. So here we go. So just to keep that in mind, right? So even if you think the government has put this facility together to control your mind and control the weather, you're going to find out that they're no longer in charge of it, nor do they have ownership of it. So here we go.
And so we need to be very careful about what we know about it and how we study it. What we're interested in is what is the effect of a large input of energy on the ionosphere.
The ionosphere is.
So can anybody think of reasons they might need to know this? Looking at you, Grim. Like, why would they need to know this kind of information? Why would it be important to experiment about that? I mean, there's like sun radiation. There's how do things in the upper atmosphere? How does it affect? How does it affect satellites? Things like that, right? So we'll see more about this. Let's go.
It's the outermost layer of the Earth's atmosphere. It is part of an electromagnetic field that keeps out harmful solar and cosmic radiation. One visible effect of the sun's rays hitting the ionosphere is the aurora borealis, known as the northern lights. The ionosphere also plays a vital role in worldwide radio communication.
There you go.
The
For some reason.
transmission of radio waves across the ocean were quite a surprise when it was first done. People thought there'd be no chance to transmit the signals across the ocean by wireless. And in fact, what the ionosphere does is act like a mirror. And so you transmit a signal and it bounces off the ionosphere and then it bounces off the Earth.
When HAARP is fully operational, it will transmit extremely powerful blasts of high-frequency radio waves directly up into the atmosphere, superheating the electrons that make up the ionosphere. This will cause them to disperse, effectively punching a hole in the ionosphere.
But after you turn the instrument off, this thing kind of moves around and it gets replenished. And within a few minutes, it's back to where you can't even detect that there's a hole anymore.
The Air Force says
That right there freaks people out, right? There you go. See, look, Grim knows. There you go. Perfect. Yeah, that right there, you got to think of the date 1995. We're talking about people were talking about the ozone layer a lot back then.
is that manipulating the ionosphere and studying the effect will allow them to improve the efficiency of communications, navigation, and surveillance systems. But researchers outside the military see HAARP as a high-tech weapon with global implications.
With no proof.
The way I see HAARP as it is right now, it is a premier, top-notch, high-energy radio physics experiment, and it has definite military applications.
Journalist Mark Farmer lives in Alaska and has written about the potential impact of HAARP for both Jane's Defense Weekly and Popular Science magazine. He believes that HAARP will be used to take giant X-rays of Earth.
Earth-penetrating tomography is a technique using extremely low-frequency radio waves. Today in geophysical probing, scientists will use explosives or a machine that thumps the ground to produce these waves, but HAARP will stimulate the auroral electrojet to make an antenna thousands of miles long that will emit these ELF waves.
Farmer's research indicates that the extremely low-frequency waves would be capable of penetrating several kilometers into the Earth, ferreting out nuclear storage facilities and other underground military installations.
Okay, again, the name of the facility is High Frequency Active Auroral Research, right? So I'm not sure where he's coming up with this, but it seems like there's a lot of imagination maybe going on.
This is producing surveillance systems able to detect stealthy cruise missiles and aircraft. These are systems that will enable us to communicate at higher data rates and at greater distances.
This is why I'm glad to hear
missile submarines.
Right here.
While the Air Force insists HAARP is not an offensive weapon and is necessary for continuing national security, Alaska native Nick Begich proposes a different scenario in this new book.
Angels
things that we
don't
found in other Air Force documents.
This dude's like, wait till you meet this guy. His name of his book is Angels Don't Play This HAARP.
One in particular was a document put together in '82. The document was called Low Intensity.
In '82, this is where he's gonna lay the foundation for his belief system here. But in '82, he found this, right? Low intensity conflict in modern technology. So this is '82. He found this. Now he's gonna attach this to the HAARP facility, and come up with his conclusion.
It's a conflict in modern technology with a forward by none other than Newt Gingrich. One section spoke about using radio frequency radiation transmitters for disrupting human thinking, for basically debilitating troops invisibly by being able to bombard them with radio frequency that was tuned to just the right frequency, just the right waveform, so as to totally disrupt their mental process and basically debilitate those troops.
Okay, so again, that document came out in what you say, 83? Well, guys, what was going on in 83? Were we in a Cold War with Russia? And if I heard it right, I'm pretty sure you said 83. So that was the middle of the Cold War, wasn't it? So I'm sure that there was a lot of military documents going around, game planning for any kind of like major conflict with the Soviet. I'm sorry, let me say it right. The Soviet Union, right? So there's a lot of documents from the time that are game planning different scenarios and different tactics, right? And that's kind of what the military does already. There you go, Wolfram. Boom, boom, right? So there, these aren't anomalies here. This isn't like a smoking gun or anything. A lot of supposed theoretical papers about this and that and what we could do come out, but a lot of them never see the light of day. So, I mean, yeah, people will sign off on it. They'll write a forward to it. They'll consider it, right? Because they say, hey, let's throw everything on the table and let's just, weed them out one by one, right? All ideas on the table. Let's figure this thing out. And then say, no, that's not going to work. Now, well, maybe we'll put that in the maybe pile. And these look like more things that we could do right now. We can run forward with this. A lot of it, the Cold War came down to basically, out subverting one place and another, right? They had their way. We had our way. Hey, Cat Ninja, what's up? Great to see you. Thank you for stopping by and saying hi and dropping that like or that thumbs up over there on Rumble. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So yeah, I was stationed in Germany in 83. Okay, cool. All right.
Because of HAARP's potential to disrupt the Earth's magnetic field, many observers are concerned that it will damage the biomagnetic sensors that migratory animals like salmon and birds depend upon.
Now think how they make that correlation right there, right? By doing a turning it on, turning it off, getting a reading, because I don't think they're considering that they turn it off. I think they think that it's running all the time here. I'm not sure. Nobody ever brings it up. But and then now it's going to, of course, be an ecological disaster for animals. I think we're building some sympathy here.
Anything that HAARP can do to the magnetic field is orders of magnitude smaller than the natural variations of the Earth's field. So I would have to say, no, there's nothing we can do to affect the salmon.
But what generates the most concern by far is HAARP's ability to tamper with and punch holes in the ionosphere.
The thing that one of the Air Force documents points out is that they want to use this heater to create enough energy in the ionosphere to get a runaway effect up to the next stabilizing level, whatever that might be.
Okay, stop. What document? The one from 83? Because HAARP wasn't built until specifically built until 93, right? So 10 years later, yeah, the construction began. Now the construction took a little while, and I don't think they threw this up in a month, right? So where did he get that document from? So he throws that bit of information out there and never circles back to confirm it, and to quote it to whatever, right? He just says documentation. That's what you hear a lot. Now you're being asked to take something on faith, right? So remember, you got your sheet out there as you're going through an analysis and doing the analysis, right? You want to make sure that you check every time somebody who's trying to sell you something is asking you to take something on faith. This is a telltale sign of a conspiracy grift, that we highlighted a lot during the alien UFO rabbit hole series. That as the check marks build of what they ask you to take on faith, you start to see more and more and more that it's less truthful and more speculative, right? So you actually can put that red flag up immediately.
It's precisely whatever that might be that worries Dr. Patrick Flanagan. a physicist who believes the ionosphere is extremely fragile.
The
That camera shot,
ionosphere
it
is
went
a
right into
chaotic
his
system
glasses.
that is on the edge of instability. So the trigger point for HAARP would be that energy and that frequency which throws the ionosphere into chaos. In other words, it would be that point which throws it over the edge.
Look, you see this thing up close.
For example, it is believed that a hole in the Earth's ozone layer has caused an increase in infrared radiation.
Remember that? What did I say? Like I said, this was the time period of the ozone layer scares, right? As Grim says, basically the idea was to have an ionosphere even during night so that you could reflect radio waves off for military communications. This is before satellite cross-linking. There you go. Great point again, Grim.
Contributing to the melting of the polar ice caps and forcing New Zealand children to wear protective clothing to school.
Oh, my
Flanagan
goodness.
and others believe the potential danger from a hole in the ionosphere is much greater.
It could create a
It's
change
different.
in
It's
the
hurricanes.
ionospheric shield that protects us from cosmic radiation. We're worried about the ozone layer. The ozone layer is nothing compared to what HAARP could do. You know, we're worried about ultraviolet light. That's just a very harmless ray compared to some of those energy streams or particles that are coming from outer space that are being deflected by this natural shield around the Earth. And this is what HAARP wants to play with.
Critics worry that HAARP has been placed in the hands of too few, and that international debate is necessary to fully
Well, it's because you know why? It's because not that many people could fit in the trailer. Yeah.
explore all the potential dangers that this project may soon unleash, a proposal in which the Air Force has shown little interest to date.
Once we open this box, and it is a veritable Pandora's box.
Oh, the Pandora's box, man. This is what you're going to hear that again when we talk about CERN. The Pandora's box. Once you open it, you cannot close it, and all the evils of the universe come pouring out, you know, to haunt your nightmares.
We're not going to be able to close it. And of course, once you acquire a technology, you want bigger and better aspects of it. And then we come into the questions of whether or not, if we go big, if we go better, if we're going to cause damage to our planet.
Proponents of HAARP insist the danger has been grossly exaggerated. The project continues to move forward as scheduled and will be fully operational by 1997.
Right?
Next, they started an
Okay, so there you go. That's the first one. That gives you an introduction to the history of the grift, right? Like where it came from, where people that latched on to these ideas are getting them from. Black turtleneck dude with a skull and the owl, and hippie speculation from, you know, pulling old documents up, right? It's like you got these two guys. That's the people that were kind of highlighted here. And there's this other dude with the, you know, this guy, right? So you know, basically they're all kind of just speculating, and they're fear mongering, and they're not really using sound logic in their analysis, but yet here they are kind of setting the narrative, the grift narrative, right? So this is where it comes from. That and other materials, other people who latched on this material, who had latched onto it previously, putting out books, videos, whatever. The club was formed, if you will. All right. So let me get the next video ready. Okay, so we got that. And this guy, while he's got an interesting look, but this is going to get into the scientific kind of like breakdown. I got the closed captions on for this. All right, cool. Scientific breakdown of how it works, right? So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of the facility itself. Grim, you're gonna love this part. I think you're gonna love this part. I think everybody's gonna love this part, but it gets really technical, and so put on your thinking caps and get ready to absorb some good information here. Let's get into it, and I'll comment as we go.
When it comes to controversial science projects,
Let me start by just getting this nice comment here. A hole in the ozone layer over the South Pole is not scary. Such holes would be approximately 80 degrees from the rays of the sun. Radiation would not come straight down through the hole. Thank you for pointing out that, you know, those facts, Wolfram. I know a lot of people don't consider that when they start jumping in. To see, fear is the mind killer, right? So once you're in a state of fear, you're in an emotional state. You're not going to be making these rational points like Wolfram's making, like Grimm's making. Thank you, Cat Ninja. You rock. And they and that's part of the problem, isn't it? Right? People get all spun up about it, you know, and then they start seeing things, they start living in this fear. And then anybody who tries to say, hey, step back for a minute and reassess this, evidently they're working with the bad guys, and it's the same reaction you get from people in the first fail when you talk about, hey, you know what? These parties work together. Hey, you know what? The ones in charge, they're not out for our best interest. Hey, you know what? This doesn't work so well. Maybe you should wait to take it, right? So many things that you get the pushback on. There's these oomers in schools. Oh, no, there's not. They want to hold on to that belief system, and it's so powerful. And the same thing happens on the other side of the first veil. Like that's what these conspiracy grift rabbit holes do to people. They put them back into that state, just in a different way where they can't notice it. Very psychologically driven, and it's unfortunate. But I think there's a way to break through better to people in the second veil than the first veil. And these topics, when they realize, hey, I'm being taken again. No way, not again. And so they will go and reassess everything that they're looking into, everything that they've bought into since they left the establishment narrative, and they'll start to debunk it. They'll become very highly effective and highly knowledgeable, and they'll take responsibility for their information. Finally, a lot of times we put things in other people's hands, and we need to just really put them in our own hands, right? And that's what happens when you come out of the first veil, the establishment narrative, right? You're like, well, there's all this information out that was kept from me. It must be true because the establishment didn't want me to know it. Does not necessarily mean it's true just because it wasn't part of the establishment narrative.
High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP, is right up there with the moon landings and chemtrails on the conspiracy hit list.
And how?
But once you get past the wilder theories and claims, the basis of the science and its aims is no less intriguing. So just what is HAARP and why is it so controversial?
All right.
Some of the many reasons why HAARP attracts so much attention comes from the claims of scientifically uninformed theorists that say it can control the weather, set off earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, bring down missiles and planes, disrupt worldwide communications, and influence people's minds and moods.
You see, and they say that without any evidence. And so how are you better than the establishment narrative that wants you just to blindly believe what they're saying when you're blindly believing something else without any kind of real evidence, right? And that's the conundrum they fall into. And that's the one I have to point out first, because I believe if you realize this, well, take responsibility for what you've actually done, you'll realize that you haven't really done the type of research deserving of your belief systems. And that's kind of the thing. Cosmic particles hit the atmosphere. They collide with molecules, ripping them apart. The energy can be released as gamma rays. When the rays skim the orbitals of the ions, electron position pairs are created. Thanks, Scrim. There we go. Okay, here we go.
If that were true, then it would be one of, if not the most powerful pieces of technology on the planet, and hidden behind government and military secrecy.
Right.
Yet HAARP is unclassified, though it was funded and jointly managed by the US Air Force, US Navy, and DARPA. But
that's the one, too, when they hear DARPA, like, oh my God, it's got to be something nefarious, right? Honestly, if you look into it, there's a lot of benign projects that are come out of these places. It's again, it's one of those things that's like, put your ideas in and we'll sort through them, right? Just the way they handle it. But look at this wide open doomsday machine out in the open. I mean, literally, you could drive up to it. You can actually get a tour of this if you want. You can actually go in and get a tour. We're gonna do that ourselves here coming up. But look at how wide open it is. If this thing was as badass as everybody says, this would be a prime target. And that's what I used to think back in the day. I'm like, well, if it's such a threat, then why doesn't someone go take care of it? I mean, it's just sitting there. Look, you don't see any machine gun towers, or I'm sure someone would come up with something like, like their special forces just camped in the woods waiting, that are just always there ready to take someone's head off. But it's not true. It's not true. This thing's very much out in the open.
Budget cuts in 2014. The ownership of the site and all the equipment was transferred to the University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Okay, so there you go. That's who owns HAARP, and that is who is running it right now. Okay, and so that the University of Alaska Fairbanks, look out for these guys because evidently have it out for you. Yeah, so in 2014, like you said, due to budgets and usefulness, right? I guess they decided that they were going to discontinue it. So they temporarily shut down it, being due to a contractor regime change, if you will. Hanadi Corporation and Alaska Native Cooperative Cooperation, serving as the region of Alaska where HAARP is, serving in the region of the Alaska where HAARP is, the site is located, was reportedly in talks to take over the facility administration contract from Marsh Creek, right? But in May of 2014, so we're coming up on 10 years here, perfect time to do this, the Air Force announced the HAARP program would be shut down later in 2014. While experiments ended in the summer of 2014, the complete shutdown and dismantling of the facility was proposed until at least May 2015, a year later. And mid-August 2015, control of the facility and its equipment was turned over to the University of Alaska Fairbanks, which is making the facility available for research on a pay-per-use basis. There you go. So a little bit of that history for you.
Who now also run it. So what is the purpose of HAARP? Well, its basic remit is to study the ionosphere, its interaction with space weather, and how it affects radio communications here on Earth, as well as the generation of VLF, that's very low frequency, and ELF, extremely low frequency radio waves, which can travel around the world and penetrate deep under the sea for communications with submarines and into the ground to reveal underground structures. HAARP deals with some complex science, and how it operates is equally complex.
Hey,
The
Memento
basic
Mori,
principle
how's it
is
going?
to try and replicate how the sun affects the upper atmosphere to create the ionosphere, and how it then goes on to affect it.
Good to see you, man.
But to do this in a controlled, repeatable way, and of course on a much, much smaller scale. Now, in order to understand HAARP, we need to know a little about the ionosphere. This is a constantly changing area of the Earth's upper atmosphere that reaches from about 60 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers in altitude, where it's thin enough so that the sun's ultraviolet and X-rays can reach it, but thick enough so that it can absorb these rays and ionize the gases there. It's also well above the area called the troposphere, where we live. Ionization is the process
there you
where
go.
high energy radiation strips away an electron from a neutral atom or
You guys get
so
that? So where it's located? Okay. Way up there.
can absorb these rays and ionize the gases there. It's also well above the area called the troposphere, where we live. Ionization is the process where high energy radiation strips away an electron from a neutral atom or molecule and creates a negatively charged electron and a positively charged ion. That's an atom with a missing electron. This process creates a shell of these charged particles around the Earth, which we call the ionosphere. This stripping of the electrons also releases energy in the form of heat and light. This light is called airglow and is similar to how the auroral lights are formed in the polar regions, but it also...
Okay, so real quick, before he gets too far ahead, this is like the basis, right? So we had to learn about weather in order to understand contrails, how they form, and why people think that they're turning on and off in chemtrails and so on. Like why some linger and why some don't. We had to understand how the weather above us. So now we're understanding the ionosphere above us, right? So he's really walking us through the foundation information that you need to actually start to really analyze this stuff. So that's how we walk through these things, man. We make sure that we understand what we're dealing with, the environment of what we're dealing with, right? This is research. This is how you really vet an idea, information, especially when they're this important. Like you get to know, that's going to affect your worldview of how you see the world. Like people that think that HAARP is real, they're walking around like a terror kind of, oh, there's a chemtrail, there's a HAARP wave, there's this and that. It's all coming at me. It's everything every day, right? Imagine that there's underlying state of anxiety and fear that they're in, right? So that's why we need to understand how things work as best we can before we start making decisions and adopting belief systems.
makes the night sky everywhere glow very slightly, and you can see this on a dark, clear night with a sensitive camera and sometimes by eye. Normally, in the dense atmosphere near the surface of the Earth, the negative electrons and positive ions would recombine very quickly. But because the gas in the upper atmosphere is much less dense, the particles are much farther apart and remain separated for much longer. With all these free electrons floating around, the high atmosphere becomes conductive, starting at around 60 kilometers, peaking intensity at 300 kilometers, and then by the time it gets to 1,000 kilometers, it's dropped almost to nothing, where the atmosphere becomes too thin and then the vacuum of space takes over. In fact, the ionosphere separates into 3 layers called the D, E, and F layer, with D being at the lowest altitude, rising up to F at the highest altitude. Because these
Okay, so real quick, just thinking about this, like how many people do you think that have adopted this narrative about HAARP in their mind, this conspiracy grift? How many do you think would actually take the time to sit down and learn about this kind of material like you guys are doing tonight, right? A lot of them they just skip over it, right? They skip over. I don't need to know all that stuff. I know what they're doing. I know what they're up to, you know. And just I would encourage people just to record yourself saying that and then play it back. Listen to how it sounds. You know, you're going to be sounding a lot like the first fail people that are insistent upon that, you know, the government's got your best interest in mind, and that, Joe Biden and all those clowns are the good guys and all this, and, you know, everything they have those people convinced of. You're going to find that you sound a lot like, I mean, I know you don't want to, and this is your way out. This is your freedom ticket right here happening.
These layers are conductive. They interact with electromagnetic waves like radio broadcasts from the surface. Depending upon their frequency, some radio waves will be absorbed, some will bounce off the electron layer and be reflected, and some will pass right through with little resistance. As these layers are created by the sun's energy, they can change dramatically from day to night, summer to winter. And in fact, the lowest D layer only exists in the daytime and completely disappears at night. They're also affected by high solar activity and solar flares, and thus affect radio transmission similarly. HAARP uses up to 3.6 megawatts of high-frequency radio signals in the 2 to 10 megahertz range.
Keep that number in mind, right? Keep that number in mind. It's going to come up later on. I'll rewind it one time so we can look at it again. 3.6 megawatts of high-frequency radio signals in the 2 to 10 megahertz range. Now, I'm sure Grim will be able to explain that and no problem at all. But just understand that, you know, this is where this is the scope of their interaction with the ionosphere, and this is the power. So this is the power that they're using to do it, right? Because it's going to come into play later on when people that are into the grift skip over this part, right? They skip over the part, like where's the power coming from, and how much power would you need to do what you're talking about right now? They don't know this information. They're just going to tell you that it's happening, right? They skip over this part. They have a gap in information.
HAARP uses up to 3.6 megawatts of high-frequency radio signals in the 2 to 10 megahertz range to excite and heat the gas molecules in a small area of the ionosphere directly above the facility.
Small area of the ionosphere directly above the facility. This is important. This is why I'm reiterating it. All right. I want you to keep this in mind for later on. But yeah, just remember that's the scope of its interaction. That's the scope of its interaction right there. That's its capability. And that's the power outage that it has to work with. That's the power supply it has to work with.
It does this with the main instrument, the IRI, or the ionospheric research.
I mean, look at this thing just sitting out in the open. This is a doomsday weapon, according to them. It's so easy. I mean, if this was really doing the things it said, I mean, you're so close to, the Soviet Union when this thing was built, right? Or no, actually, the Soviet Union was gone. To close to Russia, right? And you think if the United States had a mind control, weather manipulating a doomsday machine sitting right on the other side of the ocean there, that they may want to do something about it. China as well. You know, they may want to do something about this, but yet it sits there untouched and unobstructed for decades.
Research instrument. This is the HEATR. It's a phased array radio transmitter with 180 antenna in a grid covering about 100,000 square meters, or about 24 acres.
24 acres.
This array works like one large transmitter, but it can electronically steer the beam over about a 30-degree angle. By the time the signal has reached the ionosphere, it's spread out to a size of between 60 to 100 kilometers across, depending upon its frequency and configuration. By rapidly...
All right, 60 to 100 kilometers apart. There we go. So, yeah, so it's if 100 kilometers, 62 miles or something. People, again, this is a scope issue in terms of people don't realize that they're such a little grain of sand in compared to the Earth. You know, although we have grains of sand compared to us, right? We really 62 miles in terms of the magnitude of the Earth and the atmosphere is just a dot, right? So here we go. We're gonna talk about the patterns here.
Steering the beam around this small patch of sky, it can modulate the heating process to create signals like VLF and ELF waves. Among the many misconceptions about HAARP, probably the biggest is its power output, as this is seen as undeniable proof that it is capable of doing all the wild things claimed of it. Its stated maximum power is 3.6 megawatts, but this is often mistaken for another much larger figure, its ERP output, and that can be up to 5.8 gigawatts. So why are there two wildly different figures for the same facility? Well, HAARP's output is 3.6 megawatts, but in the broadcast industry, there is another figure called ERP, or effective radiated power. And here is where people get confused between actual power and ERP.
Yeah. So when you hear people say 5.1 gigawatts, you know that they're misquoting, right? And because that's a much larger number, and it's much more impressive and much more powerful, right? Get the gigawatts, man. That's like a 1.21 gigawatts. You could travel back in the future with that kind of power, right? Flux capacitor will get you there.
Because they don't understand what ERP represents. But one thing is for sure, you can't put in 3.6 megawatts and get out 5.8 gigawatts as some claim. It's just physically impossible.
Yeah.
In fact, you can't get out a single microwatt more than you put in. If you did, then A, you've just solved all the world's energy needs by creating a machine that makes more energy than it uses, and B, you've just broke the law of physics, and in particular, the law of conservation of energy. HAARP has to focus its 3.6 megawatts onto a small area of sky hundreds of kilometers above using its antenna array, like a torch focuses its light into a tight beam. That 5.8 gigawatt ERP is a fictional figure used by engineers in the broadcast industry to indicate how powerful the transmitter would have to be if there was no focusing and the whole sky was covered to the same power intensity at the target distance, which in this case is the small patch of sky 300 kilometers above HAARP. That ERP.
So yeah, I just want to stop that right there. So when you talked about someone who's into the grift, right, who believes HAARP is something that's not, this is what they're imagining. And they also have this thing where they imagine the antennas like all pointing, like all together, pointing some different direction and pointing another direction, like they're actually moving. The antennas do not move, right? They're static. But this is the image they're believing is happening, that it has this ability, this crazy ability to affect weather all over the world, as we'll see in some of the grifty content that I'm going to show you coming off of some different channels, like some content that people are putting out that actually buy into this stuff, blindly buy into it, I believe, but buy into it nonetheless, and continue and or enable the grift, right? By giving it some kind of relevance. But this is the idea that they're getting. They're imagining that it's radiating, one, that it's everywhere, and two, that it can be directed at the same time. So they'll pick whichever one fits their narrative of the day, usually.
Which in this case is the small patch of sky 300 kilometers above HAARP. That ERP figure can change dramatically from tens of megawatts to gigawatts, depending upon how efficient the antenna is deemed to be at focusing the radio transmissions. The tighter, more focused the beam, the higher the ERP figure will be. The more spread out, the lower the ERP figure will be. But at the end of the day, the most HAARP can transmit is 3.6 megawatts. With the inefficiencies in the system, the divergence of the beam and the absorption of the atmosphere, by the time it gets to the ionosphere, it's down to 36 milliwatts, or 36 thousandths of a watt per square meter of sky in the target zone. The amount of energy from the sun falling on the same square meter of sky by comparison is 1,367 watts, about 37,000 times more energy than HAARP. As one scientist put it, it's like trying to heat the Yukon River with a domestic immersion heater. But in case you think I'm just making it all up, consider this. If that 5.8 gigawatts was real, where does the power come from? 5.8 gigawatts of electricity is far more than the whole of Alaska generates, and is enough to supply 4.6 million US households, assuming each house is using an average of 1.26 kilowatts, as stated by the US Energy Information Administration. That's the equivalent of New York, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas combined. The biggest non-hydroelectric power station in the US is the Palo Verde nuclear plant in Arizona at 3.9 gigawatts.
Wolfram was all over that one, wasn't he? Yeah, so the biggest nuclear plant in the United States is in Arizona. 3.9 gigawatts is what it's putting out. So if you need gigawatts. So if you need if you're thinking 5.1 gigawatts, like using the false number there to equate it to HAARP, where's the power coming from? I'm sure they got an answer for that, but it's probably underground bases with using alien technology. So you have to add something to it to make it work. You can't just use the basic facts that are there. You have to say, well, there's something else doing it then, right? Because that way, that's the circular logic, right? And that's the false logic that enables the grift to continue. You have to throw something in there to make it work. And we haven't even gotten into like how this is supposed to react with the chemtrails. Like, the chemtrails are supposed to dumb us down and put metals inside of us, and then HAARP is supposed to be able to interact with that for mind control. That's the whole idea, and that's why they need HAARP for the mind control too, because the chemtrails alone, aren't going to do it. So you got to have this plant the seeds or puts the chemicals inside of you, and then they supposedly use HAARP to then control your minds. Of course, I don't believe any of that. It's just like I'm just trying to show you how they'll make these false connections to make their belief system to maintain their belief system on this, their false belief system on this, right? And how, like, when you can actually debunk these parts, it kind of puts them into a state, or the people that have been grifted by it. I'll say not the grifters. They probably usually know that they're screwing somebody over, but the people that have been grifted and become a conduit for the grift, right? They when you start to chip away at things like this, sometimes that's the way to deprogram it, right? Sometimes it's just like, well, a simple question like, well, how would they power that, right? So they have to go there, and then don't you realize you're kind of making things up to make the power outage work correctly, so it works the way you want to, right? The distance, the way, how the amount of the coverage is actually physically able to do, right? How's it going to control everybody's minds if it can only do a little area above Alaska, right? So these little things like that can start the deprogramming process.
And that would still be short by nearly 2 gigawatts. So where is the massive power station near HAARP and the transmission infrastructure required to supply this fictional 5.8 gigawatts? It doesn't exist. In fact, HAARP's power actually comes from 5 2.5 megawatt diesel generators on the site.
There you
go. So power output is one of the biggest misconceptions about HAARP.
The
other comes from its history, and in particular, a patent filed by the physicist Bernard J. Eastland. To find out why, you have to go back to an area of Alaska before HAARP was constructed, and to the oil and gas company Atlantic Richfield, also known as ARCO, and Bernard Eastland. ARCO had the rights to the huge natural gas fields in Alaska's North Slope region, but they were far from their main customers, and the cost of liquefying and transporting the gas was prohibitive.
Alaska
What they
pipeline.
needed was a customer that would be nearby. Bernard Eastland was an MIT-trained physicist who'd worked at the US Atomic Energy Commission during the 1960s and 70s. He specialized in plasma physics and co-developed the fusion torch, a method of using high-temperature plasma of a nuclear fusion reactor to convert waste materials into reusable elements. In the 1980s, Eastland was working for ARCO and became the president of ARCO's Production Technologies International Company in Houston. He suggested that ARCO could use the natural gas reserves to power a huge antenna complex to focus high-energy radio beams into the ionosphere. This would heat up the gas atoms to create artificial plasma layers in the ionosphere, but in a way which could be controlled, moved, and shaped by equipment on the ground. Alaska would be in a good position because the Earth's magnetic field lines go up almost vertically in that area. Each antenna would create a circularly polarized radio beam that would spin the particles around the magnetic field lines at the resonant frequency of the ions in the same way that a cyclotron works to accelerate particles. This would heat up the plasma and allow it to move along the magnetic field lines to higher altitudes. Eastland was granted a US patent, number 4686605, for the invention titled Method and Apparatus for Altering a Region in the Earth's Atmosphere, Ionosphere and or Magnetosphere on August the 11th, 1987. Now, whilst Eastland filed the patent, he did so whilst working for ARCO, and as such, ARCO owned the patent. Sometime afterwards, Eastland disassociated himself from it and ARCO and set up his own research company. Eastland's patent makes some very interesting, if not technical reading, and some extraordinary claims. Some of the claims include that it could disrupt communications both around the Earth, but also to and from satellites, missiles.
So you'll see this a lot too. This whole drawing here, a lot of times you'll see this thrown into HAARP conspiracy group videos and so on as fact, right? When this is just a theoretical.
Air and sea craft by randomly modulating areas of the ionosphere which are relied upon to propagate radio signals around the Earth, and thus effectively scramble the signals. Now, back in the late 1950s and early 60s, the US and Soviets exploded nuclear weapons in the magnetosphere high above the Earth, We also have a video on that if you want to see it. This created large amounts of charged particles which were found to travel along the magnetic field lines in a spiral motion and bounce back and forth between the mirror points at their ends at very high speed. This created a lot of radio noise that could blind radar systems and was thought at the time could cause the electronics of nuclear missiles to fail. One of the patent claims was that a plasma layer could be created and used to trap some of the plasma particles, which would then oscillate between the new layer and the mirror points on the magnetic field lines to create interference that could have a similar effect to the nuclear tests, but without having to detonate a nuclear device in space. Other uses include heating large areas of the ionosphere to move them to much higher altitudes, to create unexpected and unplanned drag forces on missiles and satellites and cause them to become unstable.
And just a reminder, we're going to take a tour of the facility coming up. I know some of this stuff is very technical, and I don't expect everybody to grab it the first time around. That's why I have the playlist, so you can go back and look at the source material that I use, along with rewatch this stream if you need to, if you want to. But again, hang with me because we're going to go after this. We got just a little bit longer left, about 6 minutes. After we get through all the technical ins and outs, we're going to go take tours of the facility so that you can actually get an up close look at all these diabolical people that are trying to control your mind.
Stable in their travel. Also, weather modification by affecting the upper atmospheric wind patterns by stacking of different shaped plumes of particles to create a lens effect, and then concentrating solar energy over an area or altering the course of a jet stream to move adverse weather like hurricanes or denying rain to drought-prone areas. It was also claimed to be able to make a wave reflector in the sky to steer ELF signals to a depth of 1 kilometer or more. The reflections would then be picked up by a satellite and after processing could reveal hidden structures, a bit like a CAT scan of the Earth. Another reason to use ELF waves is that the frequency of brain waves in humans lays in the 3 to 12 Hz range, very similar to that of ELF signals. It was suggested that directing such a frequency at an enemy might have a detrimental effect on their mood and ability to operate. But it wasn't all
right, so that gets into targeting. If you ever run across anybody or seen any content on people who claim to be targeted, this is what they're going off of right here. This is where that paranoia that belief system was built, right? It comes off of this right here. So a lot of times they're saying using HAARP. I've actually run into some guy who believes that the government was targeting him with not only HAARP, but smart dust, like, which isn't even invented yet. It's just kind of theoretical, I guess. But these, he put smart dust all over his car and all over wherever. It's probably just pollen. It's probably just pollen, dude. But it's smart. To him, he believed it was smart dust, and then he was being targeted, right? So now you're having this kind of schizophrenic moment via this belief system, right? Well, something ain't going right. I ain't feeling right. Some kind of weird coincidence happens, and I must be being targeted by the establishment. And I'm asked, good question to ask them is, well, why you? Why would they do it? Because I know things. I have information they don't want me to have. Why do you think you're special? Like you're one in literally a million billion people that are on the planet. Why would they target you? Do you have like they never quite understand why they just think, oh, it's because I have some knowledge or because I'm talking about things they don't want me to talk about, right? Like that, like you're that special, right? You're that special. I'm definitely talking about things people don't want to be talked about on both sides. And I don't believe that I'm nearly significant enough to face any kind of activity, because it just honestly, it's about budget, time, and energy, right? It's like they don't have the time to deal with everybody in a certain way at this point because they have to deal with other things, right? It's just like, and it becomes too obvious. So it becomes, maybe down the road in a more controlled future, they could individually target people better. But to think that you're being targeted by HAARP and smart dust is, it's time to go see the doctor at that point, because you're having a schizophrenic moment, and you need to get healthy again. So that's unfortunate that this is part of the damage these grifts can cause to people and literally send them into a paranoid and schizophrenic episodes.
All destructive. Eastland suggested that it could be used to modify the molecular makeup of the upper atmosphere, increasing the levels of ozone to fill the ozone hole and to break up various chemical entities such as carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and nitrous oxides. Even though the claims in the patent seemed extraordinary and were probably somewhat over the top, Arco still passed the idea of the ionospheric heater and its possible uses to Simon Ramo, who had led the development of microwave and missile technology and was instrumental in the creation of the ICBMs. He passed it to the Defense Department, who then gave it to the Pentagon's advanced research arm, DARPA. The big claims may well have raised a few eyebrows in the military, and its electronic beam steering and reflection technology would have been of great interest to them. But the overall size of the proposed project would have been massive.
Yeah, and also when they get passed that around like this, these people that are passing it around, they're not like experts on this stuff, right? They see an idea and they're like, well, let me get this to the experts, right? So they have to go through the chain of command and pass it along, and eventually it reaches somewhere where they can do some analysis on it. But just because it goes through bing, 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 bing to get to one place, right, doesn't mean that everybody along that chain of custody with the idea actually understood what they were passing along. They saw potential and they go, this might be good. This might be a great way to fight those commies. You know, it's just, you know, or smite our enemies or control our property, whatever you want to believe. It doesn't mean that just because it goes through these chains of commands that everybody understood it. It gets to DARPA, the Advanced Research Group, right? And that's probably where it needed to be in the first place. So it gets there and they could do some more critical analysis on it and decide, again, like you said, the overall size of the proposed project would have been massive. Is the trying to run this experiment and see if it actually does the things that is proposed a smart move, right? Does it make sense from a cost perspective? You know, everything is cost, right? So what's the return on the investment? Is it cost effective? Or is this, you know, are we just going to be pissing in the wind again with no results?
For Eastland's patent to create the effects it claimed were possible, it would call for a site with a maximum output of 100 gigawatts of
100
true
gigawatts,
power, not the fictional ERP figure. That's some 27,700 times more powerful than HAARP's 3.6 megawatts. If Eastland's design used the same 20 kilowatt antennas and layout dimensions as at HAARP, it would need 5 million antennas, which would take up an area measuring 51 kilometers by 51 kilometers, big enough to cover the city of Houston in Texas.
Yeah, don't start making sense now. I mean, like when you actually start to scope the idea, right? It makes the facility in Alaska, you know, look like a joke, doesn't it? Jacob Castro, what's up, my man?
This is why Eastland and ARCO suggested that the power should come from the huge natural gas reserves of Alaska's North Slope. It would have been a massive cash cow to ARCO to supply the gas.
Right.
To put this 100 gigawatt requirement into context, it's 9% of the United States' total electrical power capacity of 1,100 gigawatts. The biggest gas-fired power stations in the world are in Russia and can generate 5.5 gigawatts of power each. Eastland's array would need 18 of these working at full power to supply the 100 gigawatts. Eastland's idea was just too grandiose, but the scientists saw the opportunity to build a much smaller facility that would allow them to test ideas and gain a much greater understanding of the ionosphere. So with the help of the Alaskan Senator Ted Stevens, $10 million of funding was provided to ARCO to build a prototype HAARP research facility at a site of a US Air Force over-the-horizon radar, which had been cancelled before completion at Gakona, Alaska.
Okay, so real quick, I'll rewind that part. But yeah, just to understand, so HAARP itself was just like a model, like a beta test, or like, you know, a smaller scaled down version of the original idea, and it was only meant to run experiments with, right? So all the grandiose ideas that you just got through talking about, this guy proposed, right? And the scope that would be needed for that facility and the power output for that facility, you know, they said, no, there's no way, right? But let's build a smaller version of it and do some experiments with it and see if, you know, maybe down the road it's worth it. They you know, obviously, since they've parted ways with HAARP, the government hasn't they've turned it over to the University of Alaska, Fairbanks. They saw that, you know, obviously none of this stuff is worth it, right? Especially when you got mass media on your side and you can just, you know, craft the narrative and keep people, like, you know, narrowly stacked inside that narrative. That's much more effective than trying to, you know, use waves and weird things that don't exist, like smart dust and other stuff like that. Like they're going to do all this stuff. It's such a waste of energy and time. You don't need to do that. Believe me, even though these people have all the money and resources in the world, the governments do, they still don't like to waste their time. They still don't like to put themselves out to do much of it, right? It has to kind of fit in, and they've learned to be patient and be generational about things. So like, really, if you got information-based mind control working just fine with the media, using simple psychology, it's been proven over and over again to work. It's worked for generations. Why are you going to go do something like this and think it's a better deal when you're actually going to be losing be much more exposed for doing it and lose much more money for doing it. And then someone blows that facility up or something happens to it, you're out, right? You're out. So it doesn't work anymore. Now what are you going to do? It's too risky too. Nobody that buys into this grift really considers these points, and that's a shame. All right, so we're getting close to the tour here. Let me just back it up for hello. Let me just back it up.
Air Force over the horizon radar, which had been cancelled before completion.
So okay, so at the site of the U.S. Air Force over the horizon radar, which had been canceled before completion. So this is where it was supposed to be, and then they put HAARP there instead.
At Gakona, Alaska. Because of the location of HAARP, it would be able to tap into the auroral electrojet, an electric current that circulates in the polar regions of the ionosphere.
Okay, so just real quick, you might see this picture in HAARP grifts too, right? That they're saying this is what HAARP is doing. No, this is already there. Just saying they're saying that it could tap into this electric current. That's all.
By modulating the auroral electrojet with an ELF wave, it would act like an incredibly long virtual antenna high in the sky to transmit these VLF and ELF signals, something that the US Navy were particularly interested in. So now we can see where we get this conflation of ideas between the HAARP research facility and Eastland's original patent, but the two are not the same.
Nope.
HAARP operates sporadically throughout the year for short periods of time and does not use microwaves to energize the atmospheric gases as some people think. So
sporadic use, right? So when you see somebody who comes out with a, look at these HAARP waves in the sky, you know, right? Sporadic use. And then usually when they point out these cloud formations that they think is HAARP waves, it's like halfway around the world or like halfway around the country from where HAARP actually is. And as we have already learned today, it can only operate in a small area right above it. So yeah, there we go. But of course, they're not going to, the grifters and the people affected by the grift the grifters aren't going to want you to know this. People affected by it who just buy into it blindly and then start propagating it haven't looked into this and they don't understand this part about it. And you can tell by the rhetoric they have it now, because you guys are the smartest crowd on the internet, because you're here and we're part of this and part of the solution. And we do the deep dives. And we don't just say, well, if it's not if it's coming from outside the establishment, it must be true. We understand that that's not the case. Let us continue.
So it's not like a giant microwave oven. Its operating frequency of 2 to 10 megahertz is 2,000 times lower than the 2.45 gigahertz used in a microwave oven. And you know when HAARP is working because you can hear its characteristic tones in the shortwave band up to many thousands of kilometers away.
That's it.
HAARP is
all right. So that's one thing right there. Like, I guarantee you, the grifters and the victims of the grifters that are out there believing in the HAARP, like conspiracy grift, I've never heard that sound that you guys just heard. Ask them to describe, if somebody is like diehard about this, and they're just like, man, I know it's true. I know it's true. So have you ever heard it? What does it sound like? And see if I guarantee most of them have never even heard that sound.
Is not the only site like this. There are other smaller ones in Russia and Norway. But
yeah, and so people will bring up too that there's more than one HAARP out there, right? And there are other ones, but the HAARP in Alaska is the biggest one. So since you understand the capacities of it, the power outputs of it, and what exactly it does, you can imagine that these other facilities that are out there can't even hardly do what the original one does.
HAARP is the most powerful and has been able to create controlled effects in the ionosphere, such as faint airglow, ELF and VLF signals. It's detected previously unknown ionospheric effects, which have advanced our understanding of the ionosphere greatly, and some say that it's proof of concept that Eastland's ideas could work. So what are your views on HAARP? Should we do this sort of research considering its origins, or leave well alone? Let me know in the comments. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out some of our other videos if you get time.
All right, thanks, dude. Thanks, dude. And great shirt. So there you go. That guy, I thought all the ones I looked at had the most calm and detailed and well put together explanation of the technical workings of HAARP. Right. So we got the background. We know where the grift came from. We got the background. Now we got the technical specs. We know the capacity for it, what the power requirements are, what they are, what they actually use. And the history of it, where it came from, and where people conflate the ideas that were never built with what actually was built and how it's being used, right? So you can see how the grift is built. And you can see where the people who buy into it have gaps in their knowledge, right? So we've kind of covered all that. Wolfram says, one thing is certain, that irregardless, I wouldn't want to be near that thing when it's turned on without protection. Okay, fair enough. I think everything goes up, but I don't know. I'm not an expert in this field at all, you know, but I would say, okay, well, what do they do when they're there, right? What do the operators do? So let's go take a tour of this place and meet these sinister people out to get us. I got a couple different tours we're going to take a look at. Let's see. Hold on. Are we doing the tours first, or are we doing this part? Okay. So this is real quick. I want to give you a quick 4-minute video by someone who did their research paper. He'll tell you. He studied this in depth, right? So just it's an interesting story. I want you guys to listen to it real quick. So let's do this. Thesis, that's the word I was looking for. Thesis on this. So he did a lot of deep research into this, and he has some additional information. It's kind of like an addendum to what we just heard, but it's real quick.
You heat up the ionosphere for a few minutes, and then you shut it off, and you watch the ionosphere repair itself. It does that in a few seconds. You can do a lot of experiments that way.
You guys hear that all right?
You can't do in the laboratory.
The first time I visited HAARP, I didn't even know what it was. I went to HAARP as part of a physics club, the Society of Physics Students. I was a student here at the University of
Wait a minute. Who's giving physics students a tour of our doomsday device or our mind control device? What? Really?
Alaska Fairbanks, and HAARP at the time held an annual open house.
Put a sign telling you where it is.
Facility and talk to the scientists.
HAARP is a facility to study the ionosphere region 60 miles out into space. And that's a region where there's not much density. The air is very thin. It's mostly plasma, which means electrons and ions.
When I saw this facility and saw how unique and interesting it was, is when I decided to do my PhD thesis research using the HAARP facility itself. HAARP stands for the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
Sorry about that.
The federal government spent about $300 million. It's the most exquisite of its kind in the world. It's currently owned and operated by the Air Force Research Lab. And they have other priorities. They've done some tests over the years. Now they want
all right, so this obviously is a older documentary. Let me see, hold on. 9 years ago. All right.
So it's become a bit of an orphan sitting down there in Kokona.
Let me rewind that part.
The Air Force Research Lab. And they have other priorities. They've done some tests over the years. Now they want to go do other things. So it's become a bit of an orphan sitting down there in Kokona. The U.S. has the lead in the world in this area. It'd be a shame to give that up. The other facilities aren't nearly as flexible or as powerful. And HAARP can do science that the other two can't. There's a chart that compares all the heaters, including air receiver. You can see that it's quite a bit more powerful and more flexible.
It's an instrument that allows us to make small changes to the ionosphere, and then we can measure the response of the ionosphere in the upper atmosphere to the changes that HAARP is making. Scientists have categorized the various layers of the atmosphere. Most of the weather that we experience occurs in the troposphere. When we fly in commercial aircraft, we're generally flying at the top of the troposphere. Above that is the stratosphere, and above that is the mesosphere, and above that is the thermosphere. And the ionosphere is basically part of the thermosphere, which extends from about 80 to 100 kilometers.
Just kind of reiterating this
up
part.
to about 1,000 kilometers altitude. And so the ionosphere is generally what we refer to as the partially ionized portion of the thermosphere. It's too high for weather balloons, and it's too low for many satellites.
You're gonna stay for the
sure, we
tour?
can launch rockets through the ionosphere too, as we do.
It's coming up.
Flat, but those are very fast but expensive.
You have to go to bed.
The reason why we care about the ionosphere, particularly for radio communication, is that radio waves, when traveling through free space, behave differently when they travel through a region of charged particles or plasma. The ionosphere is basically a partially ionized plasma, and so one of the things that can happen to radio waves that travel through a plasma is that they can be bent, their polarization can change, they can be absorbed, and since so much of our lives is really dependent on radio communication, either communicating to satellites or for navigation.
So this is a dude who put a lot of work and effort into
satellites, essentially, or over the horizon communication or over the horizon radar. It's really important for us to understand how radio waves are affected by the ionosphere, and in some cases, how radio waves affect the ionosphere in the case of HAARP or other powerful radio transmitters.
Right. A lot of us realize how important it is, how powerful, how significant the facility is. So we're trying to figure out ways to keep it alive as an active scientific tool.
Why would it be beneficial?
And they did. And they did.
I can't speak for the application.
University
but it's a
of
mystery to solve.
Alaska, Fairbanks.
You can think of the ionosphere as a natural plasma laboratory, the conditions of which are difficult to replicate in an actual physical laboratory. And so this is just another way of learning about the world around us.
All right, cool. Thank you so much for that. we're going to go ahead and move on. But that's in the playlist, so you can watch the last minute of that or whatever if you want. But we're going to move along. And let me get us to the next video here. Okay, so that one I know it's for next week. Let me save this to the right playlist. All right. We're almost there, guys. Like I said, we're gonna get this done in probably 2 hours tonight. So you're gonna get the boom, quick, down and dirty, but extremely informative version tonight here. All right, so oh wait, we already saw this dude. This one, okay. All right, and then we're going to take a look after this. We're going to take a look at some of the typical disinformation that's out there about this and how people approach it, right? So now that that's how I do this. That's how I do things, right? I take you way back to the beginning, right? I give you the nitty gritty details, all right, and nitty gritty details of the technicals of it, the parameters of it, how it works, right? And then I take you through all the information you need to basically debunk or deprogram from there on out. And then I show you examples of it. I'll show you the examples of it. So let's go there for real. Let's get in there and take a tour with these people who are having a lot of fun. Not too long. And we will get to see the facility. And I want you to pay close attention to these people that are in the facility, because these are supposedly the people that are doing the dirty work, right? So let's roll. And again, I'm just gonna tell you up front, these people are having a lot of fun with this. So enjoy. Talk a little fast. Let's slow it down. And that better not be copyrighted music. Okay, it's normal. It's been called HAARP, and we've conspiracy theories and fun. Here we go. All right, stop playing music I don't know where they come from. All right, so they're having a lot of fun. They're just putting some tinfoil on because they are actually going to go. Like, how many people that actually think HAARP is a danger would actually go to it and get a tour? That's the same thing I'm going to say about CERN next week too. Like, you can literally, a lot of times, the people that have conspiracy grifts going on, right? You can actually go to places and debunk yourself. Like, you can actually go there and try to debunk the people telling you that you're wrong, right? I used to ask flat earthers, if we bought you a ticket to the Antarctica, would you go? And they all would always wimp out or not say they would do it, right? Kind of the same thing here. If you believe in HAARP, if I gave you a way to go to Alaska and to get a tour of it, would you go? How about CERN? Would you do the same thing? You can go on tours of both. All right, let's go.
Alaska. We are here at the U.S. government's brainwashing facility in the middle of nowhere. It's called HAARP, HAARP. And if you believe in conspiracy theories and fun stuff like that, this is a cool place to check out. But you also have to make sure you wear protection, because you don't want to be brainwashed while you're here. So you got to have your foil hats.
All right. So the first part of the tour is to go and check out the array. And there are trailers all throughout here, and they have one of them open so we can see what they're doing inside. This place is creepy looking, I'll tell you that.
It's totally something out of a science fiction movie.
All right, yeah. Here's the Doomsday Device interior, and they're giving tours, right? The people, these diabolical people that are, controlling your mind and the weather right here, right? All right. I swear to God, if this music gets me copyrighted, I'm gonna be mad. I didn't even notice it at first. It sounds like just that typical kind of like a news station's, I guess, Monday night at 10 o'clock. We're going to be on the news. I don't understand where this is coming from. Here we go. Hold on.
Feeling like I have more questions than answers.
Yeah, we need to go inside and listen to one of them.
Oh gosh, got to get back to that. Got to get back on for safety. The Air Force bought 45 acres here. They're doing their own. Am I doing this? I don't even hear them saying this. All right, whatever.
The lectures.
Yeah. Basically, these trailers house the power that powers up these towers when they send signals out to the ionosphere and back. That's basically all we know so far.
They've scienced the shit out of it.
No kidding.
So these,
like the captions are different from what they're saying. Hey Thomas, how's it going? Yeah, you missed the whole build up to everything, man. I definitely would recommend going back and watching it on a 4.5, 1.25 or 1.5 screen to catch up. But we're actually you're at the tour part of it, so we're gonna get ready to go inside of it, take a look around, and meet all the diabolical monsters inside of there from the University of Alaska. Of course, we're having a lot of fun with it because we're deprogramming here tonight. So.
hats are drawing a lot of attention.
I bet.
We just got interviewed by the local NBC news station, and I guess Monday night at 10 o'clock, we're going to be on the news. Oh, gosh, I got to get that back on for safety.
The Air Force bought 5,400
I mean, look at this diabolical monster right here.
acres here. Back in January,
you can always tell by the vest.
To build a over-the-horizon backscatter radar. Just look at the Russian horizon during the Cold War. These are the largest two-cycle engines that.
Oh yeah, I definitely think this lady right here is sus, man. She's definitely sus. She's in on it. These are look at these geniuses here behind the mind control program. So weather manipulation. There it is. These are the ones. These are the people doing it to you. Conspiracy grifters. Here's your enemy. Go get them. All right.
Motors,
not really. Don't mess with that poor man.
So these are 4,000 horsepower.
4,000 horsepower, huh?
645 cubic inch cylinders. These are V20, big machines.
Machines.
Full load average. These machines can draw over 220 gallons per hour. So, we've got 3 12,000-gallon fuel tanks outside. When we're doing science experiments, they're typically between 10 and 15 days where the scientists will come up here or not, they can collect their data remotely. But in a 2-week period, we can go through $80,000 no problem just in fuel. So every other day during those periods, whether it's a 10-day or whatever, every other day we have a truck showing up with 9,000 gallons of fuel just to keep us going. Before HAARP was built or even started to be built, his name was Bernard Eastman. And Bernard had some ideas.
Look at this command center for all this nefarious action right here.
And that's what a lot of engineers and scientists do. If you've got an idea, boy, it sounds good. First thing you do is get a patent, right?
Right.
So Bernard
That's what I explained last week. The first thing you do is get a patent. It doesn't matter you're going to ever buy it or it's ever going to work. You just get a patent, right? You can do it too. I'm sure Thomas is probably looking at some patents himself. Don't you have some patents, Thomas?
Those patents for mind control, weather modification, power beaming, right? So you went and got all these patents out there, and nobody read that or cared about that, right? Until this facility was starting to be built. The first story came out of Popular Mechanics, and I think it was in 1992. And they showed a HAARP facility blowing up a Volkswagen 200 miles away. So they had all this conspiracy stuff in that early one. So there really wasn't much out there. But as we went through 3 different build-ups to get to where we are now, it garnered more media attention. It just had more attention. So it all went back to Bernard's patents, right? Oh, they're doing
They're being smartasses and they're being smartasses. It's funny smartasses, but they're being smartasses in the closed captions here. I guess like you can choose your own, but that's not what this guy's saying. So I'm gonna turn it off just because it's funny and all, but I just don't want it to be a distraction.
Control, blowing up space shuttles, causing tsunamis, so all this stuff. And on our hotlines, we have gotten phone calls like you would not believe. Thankfully, the last one I got was a young lady asking if I could help her to win the lottery. So I'm like, hey, well, that's
nice.
A lot better than shooting down space shuttles, right?
So we just heard Marty speak and shared a bunch of useful information about HAARP.
can tell he's really trying to dumb down his knowledge to speak to the general public.
So now we're going into the planetarium. Wow.
This is based at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, and we go around to a lot of the schools there, community. So it kind of floats around based on a request basis.
I want one.
They're pretty fun. They're about $60,000.
It's like being born. It's like a giant vagina.
Well, we're all done for the day. As you might say, we're harped out. So we're going to head back to the RV. We got to go sight in the rifle for the hunting trip, but I think we're going to take a little break first.
Yeah, it's a Saturday. You know, why not go back to the motorhome and watch a movie? I think we'll probably pick a science fiction movie just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for joining us. Be sure to like, comment.
All right, so there you go. There's a tour of the facility. Hopefully I have my mic on for some of that. I just realized it was off. All right, so there's a tour. As you can see, it's highly locked down. You have to be special, a very special person to get a tour there. And that the people there are very, evil, kind of mustache twisting villains that are out to control your mind and blow up the world with space modification. I mean, with weather modification. Yeah, good stuff, huh? So now you've been there. Now you've seen it. Now you know how it works. And now you know where all the grift is, where the missing information people have been taken in by the grift don't have, and where the grift actually started, right? And whoever's really pushing this hard and won't come to the table and actually have a decent conversation about it is just out to get you. I mean, just reject that, reject those sources, because they're not doing you any good, and they really aren't doing the cause any good. So real quick, I want to show you how it looks when it comes across. Like, you can find this kind of disinformation on any platform. It's all over YouTube. It's all over Rumble. It's all over X. They're out there all the time. And most of the time, it's just a misled person, right? But unfortunately, when people are this misled, they often will not come to the table and have a decent conversation with you, or they'll dismiss all the research you put in, all the time you put into kind of like explaining it, right? They'll dismiss it, right? Which just reinforces the grift itself, which reinforces the disinformation, the false belief system that they're living in. So let's take a look at one of these guys. And like last week, Real Fishing Life could have an awesome channel about fishing up in Alaska, but they choose to buy into the chemtrail and HAARP narratives. I don't know if it's for views or if it's what. But he thinks he's a new warrior, all right, of some kind here. We have shown unbelievable evidence of their mad scientist technologies in all of our videos. So he believes there's a mad scientist doing this. Obviously hasn't done a ton of research into anything, but let's take a look at one of his videos here real quick. We won't waste a lot of time on this, but I want to show you the title: HAARP frequency waves over Canada, New Brunswick, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. Now, what do you know about this already? All right, when you see it, what do you know about this already? You already know that HAARP isn't capable of doing this, right? It doesn't have the power output, and it doesn't have the range, and it's not scoped to actually cover this amount of territory, right? And you can see on the radar where he's talking about. So let's take a look at what he's trying to prove here and do some analysis. I don't think he even talks about it.
It is 10:36 a.m. Alaska time, April 6, 2024. We're looking at the last 6 hours over the northeastern United States and parts of Canada and the Atlantic Ocean. Very heavy frequency waves from their so-called HAARP device that.
Right. So here we go. This guy, who's a fisherman, second or third generation fisherman, right? He's now an expert in weather and in HAARP, high altitude auroral, high frequency active auroral research. He's now he's an expert in that, right? Because he's watched YouTube or gotten some kind of grifty information. But imagine the state of mind to be in, okay? When you wake up every day and you're going to look at the weather, and what you see isn't reality. It's something that you've completely been grifted into believing, right? And you've convinced yourself that you believe it, and yet you don't go to try to understand it on a deeper level, like technically. They just say, well, they're doing it. Here's the proof because my lying eyes say so, right? And that's how all of these things work. That's how the chemtrail thing works. That's how the HAARP thing works. That's how the CERN thing works. It's people and their lying eyes, right? And when your eyes see something, you need to confirm it beyond your own visual intake, right? You need to go deeper and understand exactly what you're seeing. And you need to listen to all sides to understand. And the truth will make the most sense if you let it. Let's see what say. Due to the curvature of the Earth, Maine is far out of range of HAARP. Yeah, I know, but he doesn't know that because he's never done any research on it. But he's going to put this out there, and luckily he has the 329 people, 10 likes. Okay, it's a very small reach. In fact, this video tonight will probably have an equal reach, maybe if I'm lucky, on Rumble. I don't know how many people are even over there right now. We got 13 over there being led. The charge is being led by Jacob Castro. He's holding it down on that side. Man, I really wish more people on Rumble would tune into Unveiling Reality as much as they do the other shows, because this is where it all happens right here. But anyways, yeah, let's continue. Listen to this a little bit longer.
That is just producing microwaves or energy waves that can produce spins in our atmosphere and control our weather systems. Very powerful machines that crisscross each other over these states of Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire, that is pushing this material to the south. Parts of Canada that is pushing this material to the west.
What does he mean by pushing material?
Frequency waves in Maine and New Brunswick.
This is a weather pattern. There's no frequency waves going on here. But man, imagine the state of mind to wake up every day and believe that that's what you're seeing, right? To believe that all this is being pushed out of a facility in Alaska, right? And that, these natural cloud formations are nefarious. Like the world, everything around you must look dim and dark and like, man, nothing is real. I can't, it takes you psychologically, puts you in a state where, and you could try this, you guys can try this yourself if you want to. Just one day wake up and say, I'm going to see the world the way, a deep conspiracy grifted person sees the world, right? And look at how dark and how weird it looks. Everything's fake. Everything's manufactured, and that even your environment and the air you're breathing above you, it's already polluted enough, right? But let's make it worse. Let's say that there's something nefarious going on. That's these secret projects, right? Of these secret weaponized facilities. And it doesn't help that people blindly just regurgitate the grifts too, right? That's what I'm talking about, the second awakening. You have to realize that responsibility and knowledge is the knowledge is your responsibility. The truth is your responsibility. It's on you to learn the truth, to understand the truth, to understand how to discern the truth. It's part of your journey. It's part of your experience. It's part of your growth as a human being to conquer this. And most people don't understand this. And a lot of times they're just kept from this information that, this is part of life, is to continually grow, continually learn more, and continually overcome these challenges that other people put in front of you, right? Information is a huge part of what's going on in our world right now, always has been, but especially today. We live in an age of deceit where it's very easily to use psychological means and in certain institutions that have been ingrained and have a priority over others, media institutions and so on, to deceive people and to manipulate people, to manufacture their consent. And part of this challenge, you look at it like a challenge. Part of the challenge is to overcome these, both from the first veil, the establishment narrative, and the second veil, the alternative narrative of the conspiracy grifters realm, right? Not everything there on both sides is a grift or even disinformation, right? Truth is all amongst us. We have to be able to discern the truth from these swerves, these spins, these grifts that are out there. That's the challenge. That's the thing. It's not that scary when you look at it like that, right? It's more like a video game, more like a challenge, a level. You got to level up to be able to see this, what the game really is. Like maybe that's a game Grim was talking about earlier in his opinion, but in my opinion, that's the game that's going on. You have to just level up. And then once you level up above it, you understand how to discern information and pick the truth and find the truth in it, right? And know what to believe. And then you can see it clearly. It becomes very clear to you at the point when you've passed the test of the second awakening. You can see it clearly. The world becomes more clear, and you are way more formative in the world as well, and you're way more protected is additionally. So let's watch a little bit more here.
As well.
I don't think there's much
Machine
more to see,
waves
really.
will overlap. These
Listen to the
machines
rhetoric.
can consist of thousands of satellites run by computers. That also is controlled with 5G HAARP device, cell phone towers, and your next
what Graham
red
was saying,
radar
too.
systems.
Promise.
It all works together as one giant device that creates these spins, unusual spins like hurricanes. They call them northeasters, but I've never seen one come ashore before like this.
Lying eyes, right? He's never seen it, so it must be suspicious, right? Like we live short lives comparatively to the earth. We live short lives, man. People like this is again, you get into the whole climate grifting thing too, right? People who have lying eyes, right? And they're like, well, it wasn't like this when I was a kid. So you think that the earth, the sun cycles, the earth cycles, all these things that are this very ancient earth that we live on in your very short lifetime, right? But it's all within 20, 30, 40 years. These things are going to somehow, you have the expertise to say, oh, well, it wasn't that way 10 years ago. So something's going on. It must be global warming, must be man-made global warming, right? And and then the other side comes in and goes, no, it's chemtrails and HAARP. It's chemtrails, and then you got two nonsense sides fighting over bullshit. And we wonder why people can't come to reasonable conclusions, and we can't focus on the real root cause issues in our society. This is my point. This is the point. This is why I'm pointing this out as an example. This is why I go through the trouble of making these deprogramming streams, because I believe that everybody is valuable, right? And we must unify and get on the same page in terms of information and being able to come to reasonable conclusions together, that the truth must persevere. Even if it means that one day, you're wrong about something, that one day you have to go like, well, you know what? I got taken on that one, but that's all right, because everybody's been taken on something at some point in their life. Everybody's been roped into it. It's okay. It's just you can feel like a good way out, a safe way out. And for the people who've fallen for the HAARP false narrative, right? Let me just go ahead and pull this guy down. Poor dude. I hope he one day decides that this isn't for him, and that he can't trust this kind of information anymore. And he just talks about fishing. He'd have a great channel. But anyways, yeah. So, as we overcome this, we can come to reasonable conclusions. We can actually start to focus on the real problems. That's why I feel like a lot of this stuff is just out there to distract us and just keep us off from ever unifying. Because unification is the counter to division, right? It's obvious. But when we can't come together and reach reasonable conclusions, when we can't communicate effectively with each other, we have division, and that enables that cycle of corruption to continue to spin in the favor of the global ownership class, right? And what is disinformation? What is these type of practices, whether it be in the first or second veil? It's informational abuse. It's abuse. It's a level of abuse. You're abusing people, right? You're taking advantage of people. Without care, without concern, you're taking advantage of people for your own agenda. That's what it is. That's why I think anybody that wakes up to this information, right, it would be concerned about it, right? Even the people that would probably come fight me tooth and nail about chemtrails and HAARP and all this other shit that they bought into and they feel like they need to hang on to, right? When they realize that they've been once again abused by information, that they would react quicker and be like, you know what? I've already admitted once that I was taken in by the establishment narrative. What's the harm in once again saying, I've just learned more. I've come full circle in this, right? I've come full circle. So that's the second awakening, and like really what I try to express to people in the conspiracy narratives, right, is that there is further to go. You have not reached the end of your journey. There's further to go. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades now. My class of people that woke up and have been awakened, not woke, but awakened, goes way back. So I've done the work for you. I understand how these things work. I want to be here to be that roadmap for you through that second veil, to help you understand why this type of disinformation exists outside of the establishment narrative, and how you can overcome it in a way that makes you feel good about doing it, right? But ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and look at the chat here. Thomas has been saying all kinds of cool stuff in the chat. We are running, let's see. Yeah, we're running right up on 2 hours. Like I said, I think this will be a quick one tonight. Next week, I'm going to be back with CERN, right? And I'm going to deprogram the CERN conspiracy grift forever, right? And I'm going to also have an addendum to that and talk about the byproduct of that particular grift known as the Mandela effect. So we'll have like a little bit longer episode next week where we kind of dive into both sides. But again, it's kind of going to follow this format. I'm gonna let you know where the original grifts kind of popped out, usually before the facilities are built or as they're being built. People, this CERN has a good one because they did this really satanic looking opening ceremony, which really just set people off. Like it set them off. And like I said, this is really dumb for them to do it that way. I don't know why people want to do dumb shit like that. But yeah, they kind of asked for the grift a little bit, a little bit. But we'll do a tour. We'll understand how it works, what the purpose of it is, and then we'll go into the rest of it. But let me see. Thomas is talking about all kinds of things. I don't even know where to start. So no lasers going into doing destructive actions on the moon or from Earth, even orbit. He's got a lot of information, guys. I hope you guys read through it. Just be glad they're not thinking the HAARP people have the ability to induce gravitational scalar waves or something, because that would, if use explaining the whole curvature there. Yeah, then you're getting the flat Earth, right? Now you're gonna. So in order for it to work, probably the Earth has to be flat. You see how it all kind of like rolls downhill into a big pile of shit, right? Earthquake machines would make more sense, but still impossible due to the liquid parts alternating the rate of transmission. So there's no way to calculate out the given wave rate to get it the compounding effect. So same as true about climate change. Yeah, all of it, right? And when you've bought the grift in the second veil, you've bought the conspiracy grifts, you begin to realize you've been taken the same way you were taken when you believe the establishment narrative, right? And that can be very activating and very clarifying for people. And a lot of people spring out of the fog of the second veil when they come to these realizations. And I hope that it's, like I said, I'm not out to get any of these people that are doing it, but I will counter their narratives. I owe it to everybody to counter their narratives when I see them. And you can too, just by grabbing a link to one of my shows or one of my playlists, which I'm going to go ahead and release now, so that it's out there for you. How do I do this? Can I do this from here? Yes, this one is called, of course, it's the same title as the show, Deprogramming the HAARP Conspiracy Grift Forever. It is now, I believe it's now released. Do I have to hit save or anything? Let's go. All right. It should be released, so it's public now. That'll include this show at the top and all the supporting materials that I use below it. So you can have a one-stop shop, man, for all that stuff. And please feel free to share it. Here's the link to it. Playlist. I almost said playlist. There it is. I'm just gonna put playlist. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? There it is. All right. So guys, we did it, right? About 5 minutes left just to hang out and chill and talk. Where's everybody at? Wolfram, what did you think of the show tonight? What did you think of the show? And thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let's see, melting caps, is it causing the same level? Thomas has all kinds of information out there for you guys. Shelly, did I put you to sleep? Are you still there? Let's hear some comments from the crowd. Or we can just go ahead and call it. But yeah, this is what I got for you tonight. HAARP has been deprogrammed. Oh, she's here. She's here. Has definitely been debunked, and it is hopefully deprogrammed a few people with this episode tonight. I was hoping that DARPA could give me superpowers. Yeah, well, you have to go talk to them about that. Great show as always. Thank you, Wolfram. HAARPs. So let me ask you a question. How many people knew about HAARP before tonight? I mean, how you probably maybe you heard about it. Did you know what is your scale of knowledge in terms of HAARP tonight? And hopefully you learned a lot. But did you guys even know about this before I brought it up? Did you know a little bit about it? Have you just heard it in passing? Hey, Memento. I was just asking about you the other day, so I'm glad you're doing well. I saw Crown last night. We did a protest TV show. It's a new show that I got. It's not going to be. It's going to be a pop-up stream like winning to 2024 for the election stuff. But I think there's going to be a lot of protests and things going on. We'll get a bunch of different feeds from the protests on the ground, and we'll give the real truth about what's going on there versus what you're going to hear from other sources, right? So we'll kind of tackle it as it's live. I used to do this back in the day. I used to watch like Luke Rudowski and Tim Pool and a bunch of other people that would be on the ground. They had all their little setups going on, and they'd be in the crowd just documenting stuff. And it was like, it was a lot safer for them to do that back then. But that's where I first got into protest. I called it protest TV, so that's why I named the show that. And so you just what you do is we're going to jump around from a bunch of different feeds from around these protests, and we'll get the real, for anybody who's never been to one, doesn't understand it, we'll see how things really go down. So look for those to pop up. But I was asking about how you've been. I hadn't seen you guys in a minute. I know Ray gets busy, but I definitely appreciate you guys being part of the channel and showing up when you can to be part of the streams. Means a lot. And I do appreciate you guys' everybody's support. Everybody's support. Thomas, Wolfram, Alpes, Memento, Crown, Jacob, the Jacobs, Jacob Castro, Jacob Peets, Mimsies, and Shelly, and Enya, and so many others. Grim, and there's some Ellie and Lass and Cat Ninja, Rabbit. So many awesome people, man. Thank you guys all so much. All right, so let's see. Memento says, I knew about HAARP, but it's been a conspiracy subject for a long time. Anyone can dig into this stuff, but most people don't. Exactly. For sure, man. For sure. That's the problem. And it's the funny part is that people that are into the conspiracies really think that they got a handle on things, right? And that's the sad part. It's like that they're almost kidding themselves into being grifted. And that's the part that I realize I talk about this a lot, that when you leave the establishment narrative, you're kind of like, you just divorce yourself from a major belief system, right? You're in a very malleable state, even though the world is open to you again, right? So whatever's coming at you, you're gonna you're gonna seriously consider. And if they do a good job psychologically of kind of like skimming over stuff, or like if they do a good job selling you on it, you'll buy into it. Yeah, that's how a lot of people end up at the bottom there, believing in the Earth's flat. And other things, right? All these things, one thing leads to another. Oh, the moon landing was fake, therefore the space is fake, therefore NASA, therefore flat Earth. I mean, that's almost like the exact step across into that flat Earth world. That's the roadmap almost, almost exclusively the roadmap. You watch reasonable people fall into extremely unreasonable ideas. Same with chemtrails and HAARP and CERN. It's like, first, you notice the lines in the sky. You don't think that they were there when you were young. You wonder why there's so many of them. You don't like your sunny days being clouded up. You go to look up, what are these things? And boom, what do you get? You get hit with the chemtrail stuff right away. And so if you click on that and you buy into it, and you're like, oh, this explains it. This is why I didn't ever notice them before, because they just start doing this. Now they're spraying us, and this is why. And you keep digging down that rabbit hole, you're going to end up at HAARP. Oh, they control our minds and control the weather, and it makes sense now because the military is involved, the government, and they lie to us and all that stuff. And they do lie to you. I mean, it's like, but it's easy to just attach that to these grifts, right? And then all of a sudden you got people that are out there like on I think I saved one from over on X. Let me see. Conspiracy grifters. Jesus Christ. This guy, Concerned Citizen, man. I don't think that's a real, this has to be some kind of like government dude. I mean, I know that's kind of a cop out to say that, because let's see. Jesus Christ. Let's just take a look at this page again because it's so funny to look at as we have a little bit of time here at the end. I'll show you guys who I'm talking about. And this is a guy you can drop my links on anytime, please. But he will he's got some problems. Like I don't know if he's intentionally trying to mislead people or just very misled. So once you dig into the things with a critical mind, you realize most people will believe any darn thing. That's true. Hey, the worst ones are the ones who watch these perpetual motion machine videos and totally think it could work, or they're not using camera tricks to fake it, etc. I learned a long time ago not to automatically believe anything. That's the way to be. Memento mori is setting the standard right here. You need to speak. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Just kind of like, let it happen as it happens. All right, so let's take a look at this dude again. I'll go down into this little streamer mode here. All right, let's go down here. I'm way in the corner down there. But hopefully this helps you see it a little bit better. All right. Yeah, this is the first, Brett spread on this page there. And thank you for everybody who's on X. We got 12 plus people over there. How many people are on X tonight? 14? Yeah, we had hundreds last night or earlier today for the Protest TV showing. But look at this. May is Chemtrail Awareness Month. I have replied to somebody on this with like, I don't know, with hashtag conspiracy grifter. No, I said it's also Easter Bunny Awareness Month. And I got all kinds of thumbs ups and likes because of that. But look at all these people that see it. Look at that coverage, man. And all these people that like it, people who reshare it. This is propagating this bullshit, right? May is in the UK is Chemtrail Awareness Month. Like UK people tend to really buy into this shit, like hook, line, and sinker. What is it about the UK that makes people just buy into this shit? I have no idea, but they got a problem over there. They need to fix it. They buy into a lot of shit, I guess. Yeah, this is him saying, another community note previously shown and now overturned. Thank you. We are winning minus, but what we're still missing is the sun life on Earth as we know it. We're being poisoned. This is not winning. What's winning is exposing your bullshit, right? Hi, I'm winning. I'm doing it. There you go. You're not winning. I'm winning. Every day is a battle for community notes to get them to accept. Yeah, but you know what this guy won't do is he won't sit down and watch one of my videos and actually consider the information in them, right? So this shows you who's got the closed mind here and what they're doing. And so if you just look down his thing, like he thinks that if you don't believe in chemtrails, you got your head buried in the sand, right? That's someone went through a lot of trouble to make this image. There's no such thing as chemtrail awareness. Well, you didn't get this one redacted, did you? Chemtrails are not real. Contrails or condensation trails are essentially human-made clouds. They are trails of condensed water vapor creating. And see, now this guy right here, I don't know who did this. I need to give him my links. Right? I mean, these are decent, but I think my links are better. My playlist is better. I've dropped my playlist on these people. Yeah. Do you see those low-lying dark gray particulates? They're exactly what you think they are. Rain. He thinks that this stuff down here is not rain, like cloudy, like rain clouds forming. I mean, just on and on and on. And then when you talk about something like this, who can believe you, right? Who can believe you? Tornado. Oh, okay. Yeah. Tornadoes. Not known for tornadoes, but they do happen. They can't happen anywhere because they're not known. They're not known. It has to be man-made warfare. It has to do weather warfare. See, like everything's this conclusion for this guy. And he's just one of many. Like I said, I dropped like 35 links one day of just people that were reposting chemtrail stuff, right? Oh, yeah. And here you go. To Elon Musk. People want the truth, Elon. Imagine being an adult and believing this is real. That's what his attitude is. I think I've shown this before. I think he had some HAARP stuff on here too. Look at this. And there's more perpetuation of the grifts. Right? 11 hours ago. This guy never stops. Scientists have conducted numerous water and soil analysis, and they have tested the air itself. No, they haven't. Testers have tested sludge, which is what water and soil together is, right? Not separately, but together, right? And they found exactly what you expect. high levels of metals and so on, because that's what's in dirt, right? So it's there. But then when you talk about things like this, right? Who's going to listen to you? Is this even real? Like, how can you trust this guy? And this is a decent thing to go after, right? It's a decent awareness, decent problem to point out. Yet, how can anyone believe you when all you do is post chemtrail bullshit? Here we go. Where's you're missing somebody. The Princess of Wales is missing. Okay, so here we go again, right? I don't even know if that's worth investigating. That may have been blown out of proportion. Neo-Marxist critical race theory teaches that BMI is bad. Now, see, this is a good thing to bring up right here. Who's going to listen to you? You're a chemtrail HAARP dude, right? So nobody can trust what you say, because you don't do your research, and it shows on these posts you make, right? All of it over and over again. What's this say? Okay, so when he talks about the COOF stuff, I mean, no. COOF stuff, then it makes sense, right? So, there you go. There's UCLA. I was covering that. There you go. So he thinks we're wild in America. Yes, there you go. Covering that. But who's going to listen to you when you're a chemtrailer, right? There we go. More about Chemtrail Awareness Month. It doesn't exist. Yeah. Well, there you have it. Just a little. I swear I saw something that was about HAARP the other day from him. And maybe not the guy's channel. We'll go by his channel next week, FOMO TV. He does some CERN stuff. When I get you into the CERN stuff, you're going to be like, what? What? There we go. More of it. More of it. You just can't get enough of it. Just do your research, dude. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. All right, enough of this, dude. Enough of this, dude. Let's get out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. I will be back. I might be back Saturday night. I'm not sure. I got family stuff this week. But I won't be back tomorrow night. I was originally going to do a show tomorrow night. I'm gonna push that to next week. So next week will be the CERN debunking and deprogramming stream. Hope you guys will come back and join me for that. It's gonna be very interesting and a lot of fun. Then of course Sunday, Old School Watch Party Sundays with myself and T3. That's her. And we're going to finish up the Monty Python. I thought Flying Circus was a show, but maybe it's a movie. If we got one more Monty Python with the movie, we're going to do it. I do have on the list to watch They Lived. And I realize a lot of people haven't seen it, but They Lived is awesome. It's a great movie. It's kind of comedy, sci-fi, dystopic, but it has some a lot of deeper meanings to it that I think people dig. I wouldn't mind watching that. We'll look for other. That'll be probably more action. We usually do comedies, but I think that They Lived is good for that show. So we'll have to do that. I don't think Shelly's seen it. So yeah, see, I never seen it. I never seen it. So yeah, that's another reason why we have to watch it. They Live is one of my favorite movies. Yeah, there you go. So we can expect. Hopefully, you'll be there to rewatch it with us. And I gotta find. I think the documentaries we're looking at is there's one called Psychopaths, which is just about psychopaths in general in our society, and then there's Food Inc. 1 and 2. I need to check those out and make sure they're kosher. Funny, but I'm pretty sure they are if I remember right. I just want to double check. So we have a couple more revisits to the food issue. Food education documentaries, and it's more on the psychological stem. And then I'll look for other ones as well. Wolfram, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, dude. I really appreciate it. Let's wake Shelly up. Okay, let's do that. Shelly, you awake? You awake, Shelly? All right. Yeah, so we'll be doing They Live soon. They Live soon. That's a good one. So And then we'll just keep going on and on with that. Of course, on Monday, well, we'll talk about that more later, but on Monday, chapter 8 coming up for chapter 8, chapter 7, chapter 8 of the Great Awakening. So all that full schedule. Just letting you know that probably Saturday night, but maybe not. This depends on whether things get shifted around or not, as in terms of my plans, family plans, and such like that. So, anyways, look for the notifications and the schedule, and I will see you there. And all that stuff. Thank you guys so much for being here. Each and every one of you make it happen. You're part of the solution. You guys are awesome. And I hope some people learned some stuff tonight. And I hope some people out there that were buying into this now have a safe passage out of it. And you guys can always come hang out with us, man. We know all about it. And the rewatch crew, you guys watch. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on the way out the door. And let's see, anything else we're going on? Okay, cool. Everybody's got it. Cool. All right. Hit the thumbs up on the way out the door. Follow, subscribe if you haven't yet. Man, it'd be so awesome. I'd love to have you around, man. Thank you guys so much for supporting the truth, the factual truth, the actual truth, the logical truth. That's what we do here. And until next time, everyone, keep on winning.